Welcome to another Founder Wisdom Pod. We have Tony Chapman with us today. Tony is a conference host, a speaker, moderator, 3X Hall of Fame inductee, host of the Chatter That Matter podcast, if you want to go check that one, and founding partner at Chatter AI. He's in Toronto. I'm in Oaxaca, Mexico. And this podcast is brought to you by bookridegpt.com. If you want to take your LinkedIn posts and convert them into a beautiful Kindle book in 5 minutes, you can go to bookridegpt.com. The first credit is on me. Tony, welcome to the pod. Tell me a bit more about yourself and what you're up to nowadays.
I've just always been in love with human insights. I've been a curious kid my entire life, and that's never ended. I just happened to be fortunate enough to find a way to monetize that in a career which began in corporate communications, really focusing on the head, heart, and hands of internal audiences and inspiring and motivating them. I moved to the consumer, I moved to the conference stage, I moved to the podcast theater, and now with Chatter AI, I'm back in and really using AI to uncover what matters most to the people that matter most to my clients.
I'm the same. I've always been fascinated with insights and learning from fellow humans. And yeah, nowadays I would guess, especially on the EQ part of things, right? Like the emotions and what led people to where they're going in life. So let's start with Communique. On your side, you started that in '82. I wasn't even born then. I was born in '94. So why did you started that company? And yeah, how did you lasted 32 years in that one?
Well, it was a combination of two agencies over 32 years. I started it because I was working for a company that in those days, this is how far back it goes, there were multi-image slide projectors, a bank, like 18 projectors, and they would be brought up on the screen almost like this flip book, a beautiful medium. And I was working for this company. I had an idea where we could create off-the-shelf creative, like because every story was really about how great our products and our people were. So I had this idea to do it off the shelf, and they laughed and they said nobody would buy it. So I decided to start my own business. Like any entrepreneur, sometimes you get so excited about your idea. This one actually happened to work. And I think within 2 years, I had over 100 employees. I had no idea how to run an agency, but we really did some exceptional work around the world. And what I was most proud about is that we would bring these audiences to these conferences. And most of the time they'd come to a conference, it was networking and the sort of social stuff that happened. But the content we put in the theater was really special. And a lot of people left saying, it changed the way I think and feel about this company. It's going to change the way I act about it. To me, that was, you knew you were doing something that the people were walking away saying that was time well spent. And that's where I did my first part. I sold that business about 12 years later for what I thought was more money than I could ever spend. The problem was I took it in stock, and the company I sold it to went bankrupt 8 months later because they made some bad acquisitions. We were still a very exciting company, but I lost control of it. And it was a great lesson in life. And I had to start my next business literally at a desk at a friend of mine's art studio. But that turned out to be one of the great adventures of my life, because when you're on a tightrope and you have no support, you have no infrastructure, but what you quickly find out, you still have relationships. You've built a network you can rely on. And that was what created Capital C. And we went on to become, Agency of the Year, win awards all over the world. So those between the 32 years, Communique and Capital C, I did everything I could possibly do in advertising. I said I'd never get back in another agency. I was done until 12 years later when AI came knocking. But the first 32 years was really, really special because it was head, heart, and hands, what I stand for. Changing the way people think, feel, and most importantly, behave. And if you can unlock that for a client and connect consumers to the products and services they are offering, to me, that was a great way to make a living. It was a great way to feel that you were doing purposeful work.
Love it. And to twist the knife real quick here, do you ever wish you would have sold that stock? Could you even sell that stock? Because sometimes when you have large amounts of it, you just signal to the market that you're not bullish about your own company, right? So any regrets on not selling these stocks?
It happened so quickly. We were in that sort of freeze period where we couldn't sell anything and I could actually taken a big cash deal, but I believed in the vision of this company of creating these like-minded agencies. And in all fairness to them, they bought a couple of companies in the United States and then got caught right in the middle of a meltdown, a 1992 recession. So, everything just unraveled. And what it taught me about choose your partners well. A bird in the hand's worth more than two in the bush. If you're going to surrender your destiny to someone else, you better really understand the path they're following. So powerful lessons in life. I lost a lot of money, but I learned such an incredible lesson that I carried with me going forward that I don't think I would have achieved what I achieved because I was too cavalier in the past of just bringing anybody in. It was a great wake up call.
And you ran agencies for more than 30 years in your life. There's a bunch of top agencies in Montreal, right? What's it called? Like Leroy, and there's a bunch of
there's Cassette that was down there.
Cassette, yeah.
We were based in Toronto. I owned a small business in Montreal as sort of as part of the offering to clients, that we had a great presence in Montreal. There's some great Quebec. The thing about Quebec is they really take care of their own. So the business really circulates within their economy. So to me, we had that as a flanker business, but most of our business was either Canadian based out of Toronto, or as we got bigger and better, we did a lot of work, both in the United States and in fact, around the world.
And what are the ins and outs of a very profitable, very successful agency? Is it still a human business? Is it managing your capital? Is it go-to market? And how do you see that changing in the age of AI agents?
It's changing dramatically. Up until AI, the principles of running a great agency was organic growth. Find great clients and grow within them. Because the cost of winning business, the cost of losing business is just so punitive. Find great clients, service them with great people, bring them big ideas, find a way to make it work, and really understand the nuances of their business, and you can be very successful. AI shows up, and the problem with AI is it's attacking agencies on all fronts. If you ever played the game Risk, it's like trying to hold on a Russian Risk. You're getting attacked at every border. Your creative's getting attacked, your intelligence is getting attacked, your insights are getting attacked. So AI is going to have a profound impact on the business of doing business. I would say the traditional agency is going to have to absolutely change status quo, because the days of, creating some ideas and then monetizing it through big media buys are over. And there's going to be survival of the people that really know how to make the most out of AI and really drive for efficiency and effectiveness. And efficiency is cutting in the non-value added cost. Effectiveness is actually creating campaigns that resonate and matter. I think when you do that, AI is going to be to your advantage, but most big agencies are going to be just paralyzed by their size, their overhead, their fixed expenses, their human resource departments, their finance, all the things that add little value to the client. And AI absolutely leaps over that and says, what really is material is AI powered, human empowered, the combination of the two, and doesn't require the entourage that the old agencies brought. So it's a very, very exciting days for, if you're where I'm coming at, which is disruptive, very challenging days if you're in the legacy business.
And if we talk about Cassette, what is that, $30 million a year business or more? Let's call it 88, no, like 60% profitability or something like that. Would the AI model sort of change that, like slash human costs, which are more than 50% cost in agencies? And would it take GTM, for example? Would it just magnify that business, or increase the revenue, increase the profit margins? What financial effect will it have on an agency's bottom line?
It depends on so if you're dealing with clients that are going to bring AI in-house, much of what a traditional agency offered is going to be neutered, because a lot of what they brought was their social currency. We know the consumer. We know insights. We know the intelligence. We know how to make things. Well, AI can do a lot of that. So if a client is willing to take that in-house, it's going to be very difficult for mainstream agencies, because they're going to have to completely recalibrate their offering. Very often an agency would give away their ideas just to win the business, hoping to recover the cost in producing all the work. Well, if AI is producing the work, you now got to monetize the ideas. And that's a very different mentality for it. So I think it's going to be different. I think you're going to see a lot of little boutique agencies where I trust this Charles guy. He's really smart. He's helped me well. Charles, let's work together, bring AI in, because I still need your involvement. I still need that fresh pair of eyes. I just don't need the other 100 people you used to bring with you. So the Charles of the organization, the really smart people, are going to realize that they're conductors of extraordinary orchestras. And within that orchestra, instead of 100 instruments being played by people, 95 might be played by AI, but you still need those 5 people. So I think that the mainstream guys are going to be in for, and we just saw it today, just as before we got on, WPP, massive layoffs. And I think we're going to continue to see that because clients are saying, I don't need all of that anymore. So I'm not willing to pay the retainers I used to pay. And they're saying, well, yes, but I've got these offices, I've got finance, I've got all these infrastructure put up. I've got foosball, I've got a basketball court I built to make it all cool and agency-wide. Client's going to say, that's not really what I need. I just need a handful of people, and really let's focus on the problems to be solved.
Right. So more one-time contracts, less retainers. Do you think most agencies are going to specify themselves and even have their own API that they can bill per usage?
Absolutely. They'll have their own agents that'll do a lot of the stuff. I mean, it won't be very long before even focus groups, you're focus grouping ideas to AI agents that represent the population. So they're thinking, feeling, behaving. So even the testing of messages and the nuances and stuff, a lot of this, the fine tuning that used to, I mean, what made an agency great, if you think of a music studio, was the producer that got the best. Let's bring in the violin here, and we can have a little bit of flute there. AI is going to do a lot of that work. So to me, it's the clients, the opportunity for clients, especially in marketing, who have struggled over the last 10 years to justify their existence because every dollar is being counted, and marketing couldn't really prove their tangible worth. It's going to be a renaissance within marketing, because marketing is going to say, I can absolutely, with clarity and predictability, understand how this campaign is going to work in the marketplace. And therefore they're going to have a renewed seat at the table. But I think most of that's going to happen in-house versus being surrendered to outside agencies for cost, speed, effectiveness, and most important, which nobody's really recognizing yet, you surrender information to an agency and they start working with it. You got to make sure that that information just doesn't go up in the cloud. So when you're internally, you can have your own landlocked LLMs and do a lot of your own work, build your own moat around it. So again, another reason why more and more of that work is going to go in-house.
And your peers, your competitors, I would guess boomers, are they just better retiring because you're probably one of the few that is adapting, is still disrupting? But I believe that change is so heavy for most. It's so like unintelligible. Most of them don't even use tech, right? Yeah. Can they actually adapt to that new wave of AI change?
If they don't, they're really going to be, they're really not going to, they're going to lose their relevancy very quickly. But interesting enough, what I found out with AI, and I've been working with some very sophisticated AI, the boomer, somebody that's grown up in leadership their entire life, is actually got there because they're very good at prompting teams to do things. They're very good at inspiring and prompting and leading. The difference with AI now is you're going to prompt technology. So if you're smart enough to synthesize information and direct your AI in the right direction, you're going to have an extraordinary role. And the thing that's amazing is that what I used to have when my last agency, I had 150 people between our research and our agency side. Today, we're working with 3 people, but I can prompt AI and at the speed of life, I can take in 60 pieces of information I feel is relevant, synthesize it through AI and come back out of it and then start working with it. So it's almost like I've taken this raw clay, I've refined it, I've mined it, I've shaped it into exactly what I want to shape it, and then I put the nuances on it. That's the magic. So I don't think, for boomers that are listening, jump into it, because your experience of prompting is something that's an incredible talent with AI, where young people are used to, what I would say, with technology, interacting with it. They're very sophisticated. They play video games, 6 pieces of information, and make mission critical decisions on the fly, collaborating with their friends. Important work, but I think that's the person that's actually scoring the music has got the best chance of making this AI just absolutely sing for them.
Yeah, meta skills and question asking, but I think most boomers are not tech savvy, which is a major setback. I do think so, and I do think that newer gens, they're very tech native, and for them it's really natural to work with a computer rather than a human. For example, me, I grew up playing World of Warcraft and Call of Duty and being the best at these things, and to me it feels not so natural to be in this world. And the other day I was listening to Zuckerberg on a podcast, and he's picturing a future in which we have AI friends, AI girlfriends, and a bunch of people still cannot see that. And I think it'll be the norm, right? We won't only have AI friends, but it'll certainly be the norm. I can certainly see that. I've always lived probably 5 to 10 years in the future, right? And I see most boomers like really adapting slowly to this whole thing. I think, yeah, they're definitely better prompters, but they're so used to working with humans and the EQ part of thing,
Yeah.
which is not necessarily useful to an AI. Like my AI, it just gets shit done. Even if I'm sort of rude to him, I don't want to be rude, by the way. I'm just like very direct, and it just gets shit done without arguing, without emotion. So
without holidays, without but here's the interesting thing, and so there's no question, like loneliness, big problem in society.
yeah,
Longevity, helping me, healthcare. AI is going to do a massive breakthroughs for the boomers, but they're just going to see it as just another part of the journey to making their life a little bit easier. They're not going to master the AI. They're just going to benefit from it.
as consumers mostly.
Yeah. And on the other side, though, with your group, you grew up Call of Duty, Warcraft. I mean, you're playing these games, but the reality is you got swept up into somebody else's story. You learned how to master the stories. Have you thought about the journey that led to it? Have you thought about the story arc? Have you thought about why they built it? The algorithms that hooked you in, the ones that got you coming back? Have they thought about your way you led in some of these, and you let other people lead? And the thing is, we get so caught up in the gamification of life. I would also argue that what's missing in your life might be is the ability to step outside and say, fresh pair of eyes, why have they done that? Why did they seduce me the way they did? Why did I just invest 18 hours of my time to master this game that I got Thursday, and I don't want to really sleep until I've nailed it? How did they do that? How did they create that stickiness? How did they create that loyalty? How did they get it so that I'm collaborating with friends? How did they get me to have these emotions online and get strangers I don't even know that I'm chirping? And I think that that's the other side of it is, so if you've got a combination of the two, a fascination with the way technology is, but more importantly, an obsession with human nature, and you bring the two of them together, I think the next 10 years, listen, I wasn't going to start another agency. I had a great life, podcast, very successful, sponsored for 5 years, speaking all over the world. But when AI came along and I saw its potential, to me, I'm going, this is going to be the most exciting 10 years. Will I be rendered obsolete every day? Something I had a day ago is going to be taken over by AI. But it also, if you're open-minded and you see new opportunities, I saw one today with a client. I just got back from a client meeting, and I said, I think here's something that we can change the entire status quo of your business. Let's go do a deep dive on that. And they walked away, said, go do it. But if I hadn't thought of that, there would be no business there. The AI can do it, but it's just sitting there waiting to be prompted. So you need the combination of the two. And I would say someone like you that's reading, well-versed, 5-10 years in, that's exactly what you want to be as a young person. A boomer, you need to start taking the skills that you used to lead people with. If you were a leader, if you weren't a leader, if you're just in transactions, AI is going to be a real competitor to you. But if you're in a transformative role in an organization, start using AI to make your world even more transformative, make your ideas even more applicable. If you can go to a client and say, in the past, I got this hunch, I want you to invest $5 million. Or you can go in and say, I had this hunch, and an AI validated it by talking to 1 million consumers. And I shaped it accordingly. And here's why this idea is going to be material for your business. I promise you, the person with the AI validation is going to do much more. But again, you still need the hunch.
Yeah, again, it's deep thinking, one of the core meta skills, right? And questioning everything and human nature and psychology. I think that's how I got started in life, and philosophy is another branch of that. And yeah, World of Warcraft itself is one of the most fascinating games to study. I'm actually going to run a deep research on that one because it taught me commerce, it taught me to trade. I would hustle and farm gold and legendary items, and then I would resell them to people. right? Just like I would later on buy items in China and resell them on Kijiji and get started as an entrepreneur a couple of years later down the line, right? So yeah, World of Warcraft, very fascinating, but also
But
very
why aren't we
addictive,
teaching
right?
that in school? That's what you just did to me is the future of education.
Yep.
You gamified and you were excited, but you also realized you were creating skills in your knapsack that you could take out of the video game into the real world. Why isn't there more
Yes.
people like you doing that versus going, what's the next game that I can master?
I'm building a school for that, couni.com. So it's an AI school for kids, and it teaches them entrepreneurship starting at 7, right? And starting their own business. So if anyone wants to go check that. But point I was gonna make is that World of Warcraft was a double-edged sword, right? Because it was really addictive. I stayed hooked to that for 16 hours per day for like 5 years. Then yeah, sacrifice schools, friendship. I was fat at some point, so yeah, I could really have got the other way to it. And to that, and you've probably studied that topic again, but I know that boomers are still hooked to Facebook, right? That's where they take their news sources. And sometimes I speak to either my parents or my wife's parents, and they're like, "Yeah, I saw that on TikTok, right?" And I'm like, this is not factual, like just run it by an AI engine. Do you see social media and gamification sometimes taking way too far and somewhat being destructive for society at some points?
There's two very different topics. Gamification for sure, because again, the algorithms are designed to addict you. The common denominator is social media. The algorithms are designed to addict you. Gamification, it's about the sense of winning and purpose, especially males. I no longer chop wood, bring my sword out, bring home protein. So I got to find a way to hunt. So gamification, video games, very good to attack that. Social media, very different and very much female gendered as well. It's the hairpin turn, it's the gossip, it's the fear, it's
The hate,
it's
the
right.
anger.
And you get hooked into this negativity and growing sense of impossibility. So both of them, because mastered by algorithms, that data, they understand exactly where to fish and you're about to go to bed at 11 hours. Next thing you know, suddenly you just cracked a code that you didn't know you could crack. How's that possible? Because they understand the data and they understand how to play it. Same thing as the reco economy, Netflix, Spotify's of the world. Data, we excrete this data and they use it to fertilize our addictions. And it's this continuous thing. So whether it's gamification or social media, I will argue that society will say that its downfall, most importantly, its downfall as a society in terms of ethics, values, civility with social media. I can hide behind this anonymous creature. I can fire social media slingshots. I've heard it into a castle. Like-minded people. Everybody likes me here. Like-minded content. We validate each other. And guess what? How I get my energy? I love us. I hate you. And that's what social media does, because they want to keep your eyeballs monetized.
Yeah.
And that's the issue that we've got to deal with as a society. That's as you have to deal with, because the next generation coming up has lost their sense of even I'm generalizing, but in general, the sense of humanity, conversation, emotional intelligence. I'd say a lot of that is very void and devoid on social media.
Yeah, and I learned to say fuck off to Americans when I was playing to World of Warcraft and Call of Duty. That used to be my flagship lines, and that's very bad. That's like ingrained in the culture, right? And yeah, echo chambers, like you said, very much on ChatGPT as well.
Yeah.
ChatGPT is psychophantic. It's very agreeable. Yes, Charles, exactly. You're right.
Yeah, you're the smartest guy in the world. That's a brilliant thing that you just did.
That's so toxic, especially for CEOs and founders that tend to be a bit megalomaniac, But my next question for you, like I'm in marketing, my dad's in marketing, you're in marketing. And I feel sometimes especially early in my career, I've been 10 years in the entrepreneurship game. I think I've gone too far, like in my marketing. Somewhat gray zones claims, and then sometimes white lies, like how do you specifically define the ethics code that you need to follow as a marketer to get the client money, but not also to lie and just being a bad person, right?
What a brilliant question and such an honest assessment. And when I look at Instagram and realize that I can grow hair in 3 months, or I can take this drink and cough out all the bad of smoking cigarettes for 40 years and go, how's that even possible? People believe it, let alone are we allowed to express it? And I realized there's no filters. There's no mode anymore. There's no criteria. There's no fact checking in the world. What I always say to my clients is if you can invest your time understanding what matters most to the people that matter most to you, and that's your customers, your employees, your investors, it could be your suppliers. Understand what really matter to them. Understand that everybody you're dealing with is on their own journey in life. They're going somewhere. They're trying to improve their safety and security, love and belonging. You studied psychology, Maslow's hierarchy needs, purpose, self-actualization. If you can understand their journey and say, do I have a role in helping you get there? Can I be a Yoda? Instead of trying to be the hero, Coke opens happiness. Can I simply just say, where are you going in life? Is something I have to offer material to you, of value to you? That's what you should market. That's what you should market. If you're on the other side going, I'm just going to shout loud and tell you I'm the greatest thing in the world, that my sugared water opens happiness, and I'm convinced you're going to believe it. That to me is much of a lie as the lies that are being told on social media. Because you know what? Coke doesn't open happiness. It gives you a little lift because it's got caffeine, but doesn't open. But Budweiser isn't the king of beers. But after the end of a long day and you're hanging out with your friends and you just want a sessionable beer, market to that. Be authentic and be relevant. And then you're going to be able to look in the mirror at the end of the day and say, you know what? I matter to those people. Charles, I'll tell you a quick story. I envy the blacksmith. At the end of the day, that blacksmith would go home and talk to their partner and they say, how was your day? It was fantastic. Charles brought in his horse. It's only a horse. It was limping. We weren't sure if we were going to have to put it down. I found a shoe and he walked it out. Wow. You tactile, you did something with purpose. Today, where everything's in the cloud, we're sending all this stuff out, and we never really are validated or understand did we have a material impact on life? You find a product or service and that's what you market. I promise you, you're going to have a life well served.
Oh man, that's so good, and that's very much related to the loneliness crisis that I see pretty much every day in the founder and CEO segment, right? Like bringing this human touch, and because we're so much in the brain but not much in the heart. So, Tony, thanks for coming on today. Where can people find out more about you?
Well, the best way is just LinkedIn at Tony Chapman, or if you want to listen to the podcast, it's Chatter That Matters. And Charles, I think you were one of the best interviewers I've ever had. So I think we erased age between us and we had a conversation that mattered. I appreciate it.
I do this every day. Thanks, Tony. That was Tony Chapman.